Okay, welcome to the Stellified podcast. And today I'm so excited. I've got Joel Schafer with me. He's a personal empowerment mentor, shamanic dreaming arts teacher, a master of the Toltec wisdom. And I've just off camera just been speaking to Joel. I do these podcasts very much in a selfish reason because I know I gain a lot from them. But I know whoever listens to this is going to gain so much. And that's why I couldn't wait to get Joel on. There's going to be so much wisdom that's coming from Joel. If you've never listened to Joel before, this is your chance. And then go and listen to some more. So let's get started. I mean, Joel, okay, so 2020 hit. And I hope you don't mind me. I'm going to dive into this a little bit. So 2020 hits, and I'm fully aware at this point. So I've been down rabbit hole since, I don't know, 2011, 2012, since my divorce. Trauma took me on a nice, interesting path where I started to see the world, my perception of the world completely changed. So the illusion that I was in crumbled in 2012. And I was starting to be shown. It's like I was coming into videos that were meant for me at that time almost. I know a lot of people went down the same route. So like Loose Change, the one on 9/11 and things like that started. Well, you know, bloody hell, what is this? You know, what is this? What's going on here? And so 2012 hits, and the deception that was laid out through the media, through the politicians and everything else. And it was quite incredible. And how they did it as well was quite incredible. You know, took all my family and friends for the ride, well, the majority of them. Yeah. And when I went through a process, we had a pub at the time, Joel, and we looked after people during that period of time because we refused to close, and we became a hub. Anyway, when that ended, because I knew it would, the business collapsed. I had a bit of a breakdown. It forced me into a new perception, if you like, a new reality. I was forced into figuring out things for myself because I'd hit another point of anxiety, and I needed to go and touch on the dark nights of the soul. I needed to face my shadows. I needed to... Interestingly, this is how I came across you, because I started to watch the Syncretism Society around that time as well. And that's how I came across yourself. Now, I started thinking to myself, there's more to this. This reality, there's much more that's going on. You know, they already have the money, these elitist types. So this deception and everything else, they've already got the money and they've already got the power, really. So I'm thinking, well, there's more to this. There's more to this. So this is why I've brought the Stellified channel together in a way. And it's almost to bridge the gap between the 3D reality that most of us are in, to an understanding of, well, what is it they're gaining from this? And I know from your wisdom and knowledge of the Tolteks, there's the Predators, and in the Gnostic sense, they would talk about the Archons, wouldn't they? So it's quite a similar kind of thing. Is that something, in your opinion, that is going on here? Are we dealing with politicians and such like that are basically influenced by a non-human force, if you like, that David Icke would go down?
Yes, sir. I mean, that's the reality that we have to turn and face and come to terms with in order to properly understand what we're picking up on intuitively. And it's really deeply disturbing to become aware in that way. And to understand how exorcisms work and how many layers of influence exist inside of this system. And it's not just one. There are many, many beings that occupy this realm that we can't see. And that gives them an advantage, is they can watch us and we can't watch them. But a lucid dreamer becomes capable of turning and facing that which is pursuing them and hunting them. And so the Toltecs found a way to preserve their energies so they're not getting fed off like the rest of humanity. And that ultimately will be the solution that a few of us will learn to do, so that we can, oppose this force, not in a reckless way, or in a way in which we're angry with it, we use it as the catalyst that it's offering. And that's how, I mean, it's just perfect in a sense. It's the perfect obstacle course with the perfect predator. And that's what will make us become, those of us who are meant to go through this process will become warriors on the other side of it. And the majority of people are not likely to go through the same process that we are. So when you stop trying to fix the world, you just go inward and heal your heart, and then your energy is able to stay intact, and you're able to be sober enough to navigate the intensity of what's coming. And these beings are, that people think it's about money or greed or a lust for power. It's sorcery. This is straight up warfare, and it's energetic, and it's not human. And everyone is under the influence of some form of influence. It's only people that have learned to turn their mind off and keep it off for long periods of time that are able to see through the way in which the program operates and controls humanity. And so it's disturbing to get to know the parts of us that are undeveloped. So the rabbit holes can be a trap. It can be a place just as entrapping as the deception model. So there's a neutrality that's needed. And then we have to fall in love with our existence somehow and learn about the other layers of the onion and how to go into dreams. Otherwise, we will be isolated through a very torturous, terrifying process. We need to gain the ability to travel into these other layers to realize how powerful we are. Otherwise, we will feel like things are closing in. So yeah, it's just a matter of reclaiming your attention and being able to remember our magic and medicine.
It's very difficult for the general person to grasp, isn't it? Because the general person sees, as a lot would have seen in especially 2020, because that was kind of a lifting of the veil of the madness that we are under. So most people just see us under attack. I think that, so therefore you're in fear constantly. You're reacting to fear all the time. I just feel that I was forced into a situation where I needed to look at myself at that point because of exhaustion and a breakdown. But that then allowed my perception to change again and see that I was being distracted, continuously distracted, and all the rabbit holes. I've got to the point now where I just laugh now. It's almost hilarious and ridiculous and just pure theatre all of the time. And not that I don't find what they're doing as heinous, cruel, brutal, because this realm is brutal. It truly is. What would your initial sort of wisdom to direct somebody to start looking at themselves? What would you say to somebody that's constantly on Twitter, and that's probably one of the worst places to be in retrospect for these rabbit holes, because every day there's something new. But what would you say is your first step for someone to find a bit of truth within themselves?
Yeah, well, this is a world of terror and beauty. And if you're only looking at the terror, then you're going to need a lot of beauty to balance it. And so how each person does that is really following your passion or what really does it for you. It could be snowboarding, or I practice perceptual gazing, like looking at the world in unique ways. I've used psychedelics and as a means to reclaim my attention even. But each to their own, there's a price we pay every time we borrow from something. So it's about being creative and going out and having experiences that you want to have, and not being afraid of the matrix. Like, New York City is like one of the greatest places to meditate on the streets. It's just, once you're not attached, you can see all the schizophrenia for what it is. It's just the extreme of perceptual intensity. When you become an anthropologist, you start to study people and watch them and observe and get yourself involved. Go sit at a bar and talk to people and come out of your shell and get to know yourself when you're ready. I also spent a time where I avoided everyone for many years and was just very reclusive, and I healed a part of myself that way. So it's just about knowing when and where you could reestablish your connection. But pretty much anytime you get yourself into the forest or into the desert, you're going to feel better afterwards.
Yeah.
Just put the phone down. If you're going to get into distraction land, you might as well balance it with a repair time. So it's just about keeping, but I enjoy my distractions. I go and I get into those rooms with the doctors that are pushing vaccinations, and I tell them we're coming for you. I get into, I don't avoid these things. I go in there with an intention to warn them, because they're under hypnosis. They have no idea what they're doing, and I get to them, and I'm one of the few people that can. So knowing your battles, choosing them wisely, being with your mess. I'm a mess. I'm in conflict with my partner. It's very challenging to be in this realm. If we wait until we're evolved in order to experience life, nothing will ever happen. So it's okay to be in whatever stage you're at. You're not meant to be further along than you are. But when you give yourself permission to take a break and go do something like that will free you through dance or celebration, let your hair down carefully. It's not like you get recklessly engaged inside of things that will consume you. You become, I try to tell people that if you can treat this as your only life, your only chance, then you'll start really getting to know what you really want to be doing.
Yeah.
And then you'll want to balance your being with adventure. But also your wounded child might want to binge watch Netflix for a few days. And rather than deny that part of yourself, you might learn a lot by just giving that part of you a chance to just heal in that way. And so it's our perspective. Like, some people, they're like shame and guilt for doing that. But if you could take the shame and guilt away and just be with that part of you that needs that break, then we stop living in fear and really honor all the stages of our healing. So it is messy, to be honest, with the shadow work, and to be honest with your sexual frustrations or any of the dynamics that make it really difficult to be here. But ultimately, I just do these shamanic movements that put you in a trance. It's like guided meditation. It's like a moving meditation.
Okay.
So I'm able to quickly shift my perspective at all times. And that's what's proven to be the most effective thing for me.
That's wonderful. I think it's great as well that in these challenging periods where, especially those in this circle, if you like, they're up for the battle,
Yeah.
and battle worn, but you forget to have joy as well, and it's that balance, isn't it? You forget we need that. We're here to enjoy life and experience life, aren't we? Not just to fight. It's exhausting just to fight.
Well, and there's nothing to fight that's outside of you. The battle's in the chest. The enemy is within. It's a program that still has access to you. And just because it has access to others more than it does you, we still have to honor the fact that we are dealing with a mind virus that it doesn't need the television to get to. The people in the Amazon, they still rely on the shaman to tell them what's going on because they're under the influence of the same forces that we are.
Interesting.
So nobody is free from this force. Don Juan said we have a companion for life. And but that's what teaches you. And because as you come out of victimhood and start getting powerful, it's going to try to control you in a different way. It's going to make you think that it's leaving you alone so it can outmaneuver you and get you to become a cult leader, or get you to misuse your power as it grows. And power is a real thing. We can reclaim our power from the social world. There's social power or there's real power. And it's really hard for people to take the social mask off, go into their authenticity, and resurface on the other side, because it usually means you'll go alone, you'll become alone, because most people are not able to move into the depths of their inner landscape and become lucid in their dreams and learn how to use this the different layers of the earth matrix. Because there's like a social matrix, and then there's the earth matrix. The earth matrix is magical.
This mind virus is this something like what Paul Levy would have described as Wetiko, isn't it? And then
for sure,
similar things. So these guys who call themselves at the top, the puppets that we see on the TV, they're not really at the top anyway. But I mean, it's kind of. Do you think they're aware that they're under the influence, or are they just so influenced that it now has become them? That Wetiko, they've become it in a way.
Yeah, it needs to be at scale. So in order to control people, they cannot understand to the degree that they're being controlled.
Mm-hmm.
But there's stages to that, and there's gatekeepers and people that are informed to a degree, but only to the degree that would make them MK Ultra'd enough to continue to be usable. It's just amazing, and it's not human. This force that does this it probably is ancient AI, or something, because it's just like a predator that doesn't have any compassion, in a sense. It doesn't have any recognition or respect for itself or anything else. It's like something that got patterned. The Russian dreamers I speak with say it's like something that discovered that it could copy itself, and then in doing so, it copied itself infinitely. And it's become like a parasite.
Yeah. I can see that. And if you observe enough, you can see it. But you can see it in yourself. I mean, I certainly can.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, you've got to be very careful on how, like you say, the guru thing. It's an interesting one. That's one of the biggest ones, where even especially in this movement, actually, this truth movement, where that, even though ego is important to navigate this realm, that's where if there's this predator is going to tap into that ego and allow you to feel power, there's an influence there, and you've got to start having a bit of observation of yourself and where your heart is really. It's a challenge in itself, because power can be, it can be. It can take over you. You can feel that, and you got to be so careful that it doesn't take for a ride. It's like any addiction, and that distraction in itself, quite fascinating and quite incredible at the same time. How did you start on this journey, Joel? Because I've listened to a few of your podcasts over the past few years. And I know that you found yourself out in the wilderness living alone at one point, didn't you? And living off the land, I presume. And I mean, it's quite an interesting story. If you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit for us.
Yeah, I mean, I got started young. I met a shaman when I was 16. But prior to that, from 13 to 16, I would babysit schizophrenic friends of mine. And they would really keep me entertained, and I would keep them out of juvenile detention centers. Like, we just kind of struck a deal, like, and we were playing with psychedelics, and it led me to recognizing somebody that was really powerful, and introduced myself to them, and they kind of pulled the carpet out from under me. So from 16 to like 22, I was in the wilderness training, like in an intense way, covering the Castaneda material really powerfully by somebody who was very advanced. And I was able to see beings from other layers of the onion in the wilderness at night. And I was put into situations that were quite liberating and terrifying and magical. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, that man got the Messiah complex and ended up getting really lost. And it was really difficult to get away from him. Okay. And still is. Like, there's these sorcery stuff's no joke. You have to like understand that dreams and things are real, and that a lot of what we think is subconscious is actually warfare. Anyways, it's tricky stuff, but one of the ways I lived in the woods was I just was a carpenter in like Aspen, Colorado or Telluride, Colorado. And a
Yeah.
lot of us would just spend the warm season in a private spot in a tent just outside of town, and we just walk down, catch the shuttle to the job site, or we had cars parked in places that were, we always had to move our vehicles and stuff. So it's just like getting to, it would be amazing. The moon would be so bright. I'd be woke up in the middle of the night and just walk through the woods alone. I kind of like owned this section of the mountain.
Wow.
And I became one with that land, and used mushrooms and different things to really take it to the next level. And so I've always lived a magical life, really, since I was quite like 13. And but I got really dysregulated and ungrounded from the shamanic training because my teachers were reckless.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I teach a much slower way than what I was taught. And so yeah, I've just been doing this for a long, long time. My life has been really, really long. Even though I'm only 47, I feel different than that. I feel that I've lived a very, very long life because every day is very long for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've changed my relationship with time. Time is measured by intensity. And when you live with a lot of intensity, then, it's totally different in how you perceive the way in which the now operates, like the eternal now. You get to hang out inside of it, and you just not in this. In a lot of people feel the same feelings over and over every day, and when you learn that there's more feelings to access through lucidity, then you start really going out and making every day count on a big level.
Yeah, I love that, and it's interestingly, I'd made a note to speak to you about time as well. So I'm glad you brought that up because time it's an illusion, isn't it? Really, we're not in linear time, are we? Even though this is our perception growing up, this is what we're taught. And I recall a conversation you had, and you talked about past lives, and you don't believe in past lives. You believe in parallel lives, which is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Because it's hard to get your mind around that concept when you have history, don't you? Or you are conditioned with history and history books and whatever. How is that something that you were taught yourself, or did you just come across a knowing? How did that work?
I mean, it's a big part of the Castaneda material is to meet your parallel being, right? So a lot of people, like, the whole point of the work that I teach is to recapitulate your memories, because memories are like dreams, and dreams are the solution. And if you can remember your inventory, then you can release it and you can become pure awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And so our ability to unbind from the linear, to be able to have experiences outside of the construct of linear time is what makes that parallel communication possible. And so it's not that we don't have other lifetimes, it's just that they're not one after another. They're all happening simultaneously. And if I recycle and come back, I might end up in 500 BC in a life that has already happened, and then I will experience that life.
Yeah.
But they're all, in fact, even this life has already happened. I'm inside of a memory.
Wow.
Why I can dream into the future and have true deja vu like experiences. And so my future self probably is reverse engineering this experience to arrive at what it already discovered. So it's not like the linear isn't functional. We can use the linear in order to track and understand the nonlinear. And if we didn't have the linear, there would be no structure. So it's not a negative, and yet it's a trap if we don't free ourselves from it and understand how to become magical and go travel through time again. Like if I can go back to my 8-year-old self experiencing, standing on a sidewalk holding my parents' hand, if I can return to that moment and actually be there with my 47-year-old awareness, then I become a time traveler. It's called the usher. So you start just tapping into memories, and then you find yourself back in them. And this whole thing that you think is so real in front of you goes away, and you're in an experience that happened a long time ago, and you've revisited it, and you're recapitulating the energy from it. And so you're collecting your soul essence. And the recapitulation is what allows shamans to take all of their power and burn from the fire from within and cross into eternity with their consciousness intact, so they don't recycle back into these life cycles. They turn a circle into a line, and they move into the afterlife with their power intact. So the sorcerers that are here to control people, they seek power in this life. The Tolteks seek power in the afterlife, and that this place is a trap. If you start taking and hurting and becoming materialistic and identifying with this place in the way that would bolster your ego, then you can't. There's no way to return to your magic and medicine and realize that everything is perception. There's nothing to take with you except for your experiences and your awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we start valuing experience over, security, then we can tap into a greater consciousness that will guide us.
Yeah, and I kind of understand that more now over the past couple of years. I just feel more like I'm observing my experience more, whereas I've had mental health issues in the
Sure.
past, if you like, where general anxiety, in testing me, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's completely gone either, by the way, but I've realised now that I actually, in a way, I've created all of those moments and those painful periods of my life to grow and
Yes.
evolve.
Yes.
And it's hard to understand when you're in the fog and you're in the midst of all that pain and you've got a suffering going on. You're not seeing the test and the knowledge that is providing you at that time. It's almost like now it's a strange thing for people to probably grasp that I'm the way I'm talking right now, but it's almost like I'm seeing this as a game.
Totally. It's a perfect contract, and it's exactly designed the way it was needed to be for you to go through the rites of passage that will allow you to cultivate your awareness. And it's a real predicament we're in, but it's not one that is outside of our range of being able to navigate. So yeah, everything happens for you, not to you.
Yeah, I love that. Do you think the distractions that happen to this experience that we're having, all the political, even entertainment, sport, whatever, do you think that is all designed to stop you or to halt your progress to go inward? We're always looking outward. We always look, the religion for one. You're looking for a savior. It's this. That's looking outside. And even the blaming the politician is a victim mentality where you're looking outside.
Yeah.
So to someone that's actually causing you a problem, where again, the shadow aspect is all internal. Does that make sense where I'm coming from that?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, our ability to turn this place off is real. With it, if you stay in silence long enough, then all of it goes away, and there's another world waiting for you. But it's just a massive surrender, and so the distractions are powerful enough to make sure that nobody feels comfortable surrendering to that degree. And so it's all energetic. Like when you have a fever and you're listening to like somebody watching TV in the background, that's when you can feel like what's really going on behind that program.
Yeah.
Or a song. You can hear like certain songs. You're like, oh shit, I didn't realize there's all these layers to how this stuff operates, and it's disturbing. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword. Like that song in another moment could be the most beautiful release for you as you sing along and dance and allow yourself to feel what, so it's just about how you use this place. If you don't use it, it will use you.
Yeah.
And so if you were to live in fear of listening to music because it's all satanic, then you'll miss out on the most incredible experiences, dancing with women and celebrating life and, becoming powerful in that way. And so I've just, it's such a tricky thing to explain, but there is no, like, every truth has a contradiction to it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all, and that's what brings you to the expansive nature, is that everything matters and nothing matters at the same time. And if you can live inside of that intensity, then you'll really become, non-linear. You'll become capable of really having a dance with your shadow and your light body, and really honoring that every stage is necessary. And that if you try and ascend, like I'm all about descending, go down into your pain, get to know the fractured part, quit trying to escape this place.
Yeah.
Drop down, hang out like the shamans do. They go down into the mother. They even bury themselves in the earth for periods of time in order to get a break from the distractions, in order to just be held in this very intense protection that she offers us. So she's alive and conscious, even though there's a simulated overlay of this realm, that the elements of power that we're dealing with, the sun and this being, this mother, is real, and she can take your pain, and the sun can teach you how to prepare you for your death.
Mm-hmm.
These are very powerful consciousnesses that we're interacting with.
Speaking of recapitulation, I can't even pronounce it, recapitulation. Yeah. So I came across that only maybe in the past 6 months. It was Howdy Mikowski who talks about doing it, but he talks about it in terms of facing the potential of a soul trap, where by doing it, he once taken into the astral, he's already done the work, therefore he can't be tricked to come back. Now, I know David Icke talks about the soul trap, and there are a number of others that talk about the soul trap. But if there's only, if there's no reincarnation, then there's no soul trap, is there?
Yeah, I don't buy into soul trap at all. This place is a launch pad into other worlds and other visions and other dreams. But it's a phantom world. It's made up of phantom stories and phantom constructs, and it's held together by an unconsciousness that has to be exposed in order for us to become free from it. And so the recapitulation leads to that freedom. It gives you your energy back in order to do dreaming, and dreaming is the means and method to free oneself. So the Castaneda books explain this thoroughly, but it's very, very difficult. And people even that read the Castaneda books don't put it together. They don't understand. It's too confronting. Our attention is so reduced down to the potential that it could be, that reading what Carlos figured out how to do in dreams, it realizes that one is forced to realize that you're a novice. Even anybody that, like a David Icke or these people that haven't learned how to travel into other layers, they're still caught in clarity. They haven't stepped into power.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the teachings of the Castaneda books, is there's 4 enemies of man: fear, clarity, power, and old age. And clarity is a trap. Clarity, you turn into a philosopher or somebody that just has a perspective, but hasn't validated that through any energetic transference of consciousness. So Howdy's sort of on, he has a point. If you recapitulate, you'll be able to understand what's being presented to you when you die, and you potentially have the awareness to not fall for any seduction that exists, as is there with everything. But the recapitulation is in and of itself enough. If you review every memory of your life, you've taken inventory, then when your memories would normally flash before your eyes at death, you've already done that. And then this force that normally consumes your memory will actually let you go on into the next stage because you figured out what it takes to do so. And so normally this force, the reason it devours your awareness is because you are an extension of it. We are probes that get sent out to gain experience. And that experience is then consumed and goes back to the whole, and we recycle and go become probes again. But you are the thing that is projecting you, so you can become so powerful in yourself that you move into the next stage, and then you become a creator. You become, then there's many layers to what is possible. And then, so there's all kinds of helpers here that are already moved on and are lending their intent and support for us. And it's just about de-armoring enough to receive that support without getting tricked, because the ego will think if you do receive support and you're being guided and you have helpers, that maybe now you're special and insulated in a way that others are not. And so it's just such a mess that it's no way around getting to know the complexity, but there is a way to come out of complexity into simplicity. Just go slow enough and the flyers or the predator won't blitz you. But if you try to make too much change too quickly, then that won't prove to be a strategy that doesn't typically work. It might, but the slower the better. That way you're anticipating and understanding how the program's adjusting itself to you.
Okay.
Baby steps.
So this realm, in essence, then is an initiation. Then.
Yeah, exactly. It's a perfect reflection of you. Everything that happens to you when you go out in the world just is a reflection of you. And so how you receive or how you perceive it is just an opportunity to know yourself. So Carlos, Don Juan would tell Carlos, he said, if you're standing in Los Angeles and your assemblage point moves, you will remain, but Los Angeles no longer will remain. It's just an illusion. But we're all caught in the illusion. And we're all identifying with the illusion by validating it for each other, and we're all like trapping each other inside of a story that, and we try to make ourselves feel okay about it by watching a video about something or anything. And the reality is it's only when we get to our emotional healing, getting to know our rage, our resentment, our bitterness, getting to be honest about how much we really want in on life, and that we're not content, even though we pretend we are. There's a part of us that needs to rewild. And that doesn't mean you have to go build a cabin in the woods. There's a way to rewild yourself in a jail cell or from the comforts of your own home. But a jail cell might be easier because you're finally sort of faced with the limitations that would force you to change.
Yeah, no choice, have you?
It's easier to be impeccable in situations that are difficult than in the normal standard day in which things are just pretty standard. So it takes a revolution within to not let the mundane even exist. Like you basically sit inside of your boredom and quit distracting yourself until you free your imagination and creativity back into your field from your childhood. And that's what the recapitulation does. You go back and you get all that essence that you left. You can even take it back from clothing that you didn't take your energy back from, or different tricks and ways in which to reclaim all that light. It's like filaments of light that you left.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I remember when I was going through the period a couple of years back, and I started going through memories and bringing forgiveness, but true forgiveness, not like, oh, I forgive myself or I forgive you for doing this to me or whatever, but removing the victim victimhood that I had. I was a victim for a previous divorce, or I'd harmed someone, not intentionally, but I'd harmed someone. But I needed to find love in there and remove shame somehow, because I was carrying that
Totally.
that boulder was I was picking up those boulders all through my journey, and I needed to release those. So I find that really helpful, and I'm actually writing my memoirs at the moment, and going back again now, and doing it again in a way, and it's I find it a necessary thing for me, to do some release work, really. So what people might try and find difficult, especially that are going to come across this podcast, that are going to say, okay, well, you're talking that this is a simulation, in effect. This is your perception, is this is an illusion. So how come I feel pain, physical pain? How come I can, I know in quantum mechanic terms nowadays, not that would allow us to say that nothing is solid, everything vibrates and things like that. But people do get hurt. You could get run over, you could whatever, anything could happen, and you've got physical pain. That's going to ground you back into this reality very quickly. So what would you say to somebody who would say, look, well, how can it be an illusion? I've just broke my leg.
Yeah, the experience is real, and it's being felt through your chakra system, which
Okay.
is real. And you're inside of a projection, a holographic projected experience that feels so real that it is. Therefore, it is. We are perceivers. Reality is not, just because it's an illusion doesn't mean it's not real.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a way, and maybe sometimes it's inside of pain that people discover that they're not physical. So it's a rite of passage to get to the point where you have to figure out how to transcend and go into the energetics in order to heal. And so it's whatever disease or injury or event, it's a reflection of your consciousness. It's very unlikely that these things will happen to me now, because I've become sensitive enough to listen as to when to get in the car and when not to, and
Mm-hmm.
what my time. And so it's a training ground. It's an initiation to become aware that things are not random.
Yeah.
And then you start to take care of yourself and listen to your dreaming body rather than your physical body. So we have a separate body that's behind us, like 6 feet. It's an astral body that's smaller and compact. Then we have a toroidal field that surrounds us.
Yeah.
And then that toroidal field can have a film that protects you all the way up to the crown. And if you live inside of that protection long enough, so these movements I teach, you're literally reclaiming your vitality that's outside of you, that's crusted up energy, and breaking it up and redistributing it to your organs, which have secondary magical functions. And then your body starts communicating with itself in a new way. And this film protects you, and then you're totally guided instead of just at the mercy of the potential of chaos that could happen by going out the door or eating the wrong thing, or whatever people think it is. Like when we die, it's not the cancer or the car accident, it's that your luminosity was no longer able to keep your awareness intact, and it was like so basically, if you could go backwards through the stream of consciousness to that which is projecting this experience, then you would realize that you have parallel lives that are projected out from that being that is the higher, or whatever, this, what they call like the soul self.
Mm-hmm.
And you can then jump grooves and go into other worlds if you could go backwards to that which is projecting you. And that's all done through the power of dreaming. So dreaming isn't what people think it is. It's there's a way to use normal dreams and turn them into magical portals that give you access to these parallel parts of you. So a lot of people, rather than recapitulate, they're trying to do past life regression work.
Mm-hmm.
If they would just slow down, come back and work with regression work here, going back from today all the way back to when they were born, then they would have recapitulated, and then they would be able to go into past future lives, which are just actually parallel lives. And then you could, if you and your parallel being meet in dream time, there's a boost for both of you. And so if you treat this life as if it's your only one, which it is in a sense, because if it's not, then you'll relinquish your memories and start over. And so it might as well. So it's just sort of perspective. And then the more you support this dream to become magical, the more your parallel being will benefit.
I love that. I love that. So when I first came across you, Joel, as I mentioned, it was almost like, for me, at that period of my life, it's like the teacher arrives when the student's ready, kind of thing. So you came on the Syncretism Society. I'd kind of just got into listening to Santos Bonacci at that time, who blew me away initially. I remember I was looking for the Black Nobility. I was doing a search for the Black Nobility, and I came across an early Santos video on BitChute. So I started following Santos at that time, and then his astral theology just blew me away. It was new stuff to me. It was a new journey, and then syncretism. And I came across yourself, Jason Bashir's, Roberto. I can't pronounce his surname. Cultured. I can't, because it's a Toltec name, isn't it? And I interviewed Roberto last year actually for another channel. And I love Roberto. He's absolutely wonderful. And I thought it was very interesting where they were talking about, there's been talk about mastery, and this is what it is really, isn't it? It's about self-mastery. But Santos and Roberto both really stress hard on the vegan diet. And it's something I've struggled with, I'll be honest with you, Joel, because I have a lot of friends who are vegan or vegetarian, but I'm still a meat eater. Now I'm kind of I have my morals as well. So there's a little thing going on inside of me every time where I'm thinking, it's the wrong thing to do or whatever. But it's kind of, but I refuse to be judged by the fact that I still eat meat. I feel I listen to my body. So I'll eat not that I'm not, don't tell me wrong, I'm not the best diet in the world by any stretch, but I will eat what I feel I need and want. Is it right that the Toltecs were breatharians or fruit, or just ate fruit, or is that wrong? Is that incorrect?
Yeah, I don't believe that. I don't know where Roberto came up with that. I think it's just an idealistic way of looking at things, and I just don't. I think maybe we started out that way a long time ago, and then at some point we lived off of animal fat for so long that it changed us.
Yeah.
If we try to go away from it for too long, it backfires. Unless you're really powerful in your placebo and your ability to create your own reality, and breatharianism and fruitarianism is possible, but it's almost like you're tapping into your reserves because your body thinks it's dying. Like, why wouldn't you be giving what it's used to being given over hundreds of thousands of years? So we've entered a philosophy of idealism, and then the scriptures and or stories that create our reality have hijacked our perception. But Toltecs would fall. They're very important that they have a power meet. They hunt an animal, and that animal is guided to become one with them. And so they take that animal's life, they honor that animal, they keep that meat as jerky so that whenever they're going into their perceptual experiences, they're not going in without the support of that power. And so I believe we're meant to actually live off of carnivore, or the lion's diet, which is beef, eggs, and fat
Mm-hmm.
and salt. And so I tried to do all the fruit stuff, and I tried and all the different things. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just think there's a misunderstanding. I think Santos is a good example of that. His health crisis is probably simply that he's not allowing his body to listen to what it needs, because he has an idea. But I don't think we're separate, and I don't think death is a negative.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it'd be more beautiful if these animals lived the most beautiful life possible and were honored as they were, you know, um, slaughtered. But that
Mm-hmm.
hunting and slaughtering isn't. Uh, it has nothing to do with cannibalism or these concepts that people try to overlay. We are here as beings that are higher on the food chain for a reason, just
Yeah.
like the predator that's higher on the food chain than us. Now, if you're a magical deer, you won't be able to be hunted. And if I become a magical person, I will not be able to be hunted. But in the
Interesting.
meanwhile, it's just about honoring all these stages. And yeah, all these people that are trying to project that concept into the religion that they believe in, or make it all sound so peaceful. I just don't believe that it's helpful. Like Carlos required of his apprentices that they eat just one steak a day and
Mm-hmm.
not have any caffeine. He was strict, but in a different way. And so basically, we just want to eat the thing that's going to give us the most fuel. And when
Yeah.
we try to eat something that's not giving you the most fuel and heal your, maybe these people are trying to shift their body from hundreds of thousands of years into something else. I think one lifetime would be too quickly. If we're going to switch back to fruit, it would have to taper. It would have to be a cultural, slow revolution of change that happens so that we can adjust. It's too quick. So I think it's just people are damaging themselves. Even long-term fasting is unnecessary, even though in an emergency, dry fasting is what heals you, because your
Mm-hmm.
body finally gets a chance to bring its
Regenerate.
reserves forward. And but I think if we're not listening and we're trying to copy somebody
Yeah.
and see what worked for them, then we're missing out on a direct knowing with what our being is telling us.
Yeah, and there seems to be a projection of fear with this, though, as well as shame. That's something that I struggle with. You know, I don't want to be put under shame, and I don't want to be judged either. You know,
Totally.
I will make that judgment myself in that respect. You know, and don't get me wrong, there are times where I battle with that internally, but that's my battle. I don't need somebody to do that to me. Um, and that's how I feel about it. But I do understand why people do it as well. I totally get it. Um, it's just I just feel that my body needs the balance
Well,
of
and
that.
I will add for those that are listening, what I've recently discovered is I just think we just aren't given the nutritional explanation, but veganism would actually be healthier than the standard American diet, because you're mixing fat, carbs, and protein in a way that the body can't handle. So it's just
Mm.
food combinations that are tricky. So if you go all in on fat and protein only, that works. Or
Okay.
or fish is like protein, and then you add some carbs. So protein and carbs can work together. But then you're going to have to avoid the animal fat, because now you're going to create a condition in which there's too many combinations trying to
Interesting.
ferment inside of your system. And then
Okay.
veganism can help for a period of time because you're not mixing too many things. But if you stay in veganism too long, it's going to completely cause damage. So
Mm.
the knowledge is key. There's a story here. An understanding. That's why certain places have longer longevity, based on their diets. So if you pay attention to those, they're not trying to mix too many things. They get really careful in that they create the food combination balance. So Dr. Bart K is probably the most knowledgeable man when it comes to carnivore, and he explains it in a way, once you realize it and then you give your body permission. Basically, the only time you would eat rice or something like that is because you don't realize it's just empty carbs. You're not getting
Mm-hmm.
anything from it. So wait until you're so hungry that the only thing you want is a steak, and then don't eat anything else but the steak, and then wait again until you're so hungry that the only thing you want is the steak. And eventually you just won't eat anything else because you're getting the best fuel from the gas station, and your body starts adapting and you start craving it, and your body, all your injuries start healing, all the arthritis goes away, all the stress goes away, because the digestive tract is finally not having to process more than one thing.
Interesting. That I'll have to look into that. Um, Toltecs. Can you explain it for my listeners? I've gone down into it a little bit myself, so I have a little bit of an understanding. But if you could explain what a Toltec actually is, because a lot of people would perceive it is something like the Mayans, that it's a culture or a group of people, but it isn't that, is it?
Yeah, so Toltec is a name that's given to people that are guided into this type of knowledge, and you could be of any genetics or race, or it has nothing. But the knowledge came from Mexico, the ancient Mexico, but it spread, and some of the most powerful teachers were not of that bloodline. So it's just a matter of spirit signing or guiding people into this um, knowledge base. And then there's certain events that happen in your life where you realize you become a Toltec dreamer, because you're inside of the lineage. So I help people to connect to that lineage. The shamans of ancient Mexico left what's called an electrical coil that anyone can tap into by doing the shamanic movements, by recapitulating, and by using the dreaming gates as a means to go into the other layers. And once you start exploring this work, then you end up instantly connected to this lineage, and you feel their support. And these are magical beings that are here, that are in place to assist us. Don Juan said, if we do not discover the secret of the assemblage point, um, that we would perish. And so we're kind of at that time where we're going to remember what we are, and that we're travelers, and we've been caught in an eddy, and we're basically, like a whirlpool. We're meant to be going down the river, and we got caught in this thing, and we think this is all life is.
Yeah.
But if we can come out of that, oh my God, everything will start flowing again. That's why they dam the waters and poison the waters, and everything's to control us through very powerful sorcery means. Things are meant to flow. Our life is meant to be fluid and magical and perceptually liberating. So it's a real thing to become a Toltec and to have a relationship with these. The significance of what gazing and the not doings and what the Castaneda material offers is unprecedented. There's nothing like it. I don't think there ever will be. It's so unique in a manual that's been presented. And it wasn't really Carlos's doing. It was his teacher that manipulated him and planted seeds that would lead him to creating this. And then Carlos wasn't the man for the job to continue the lineage. And so he was given the task of closing the lineage. And that's why the books were given. And that's why the magical passes were taught, is to disseminate this power.
Lovely.
And anyone and everyone now, because the veil's lifting, can step into this knowledge, where before you had to be invited. It was private.
That's really exciting, though, isn't it, for humanity in itself? Really, that shows the changes that are happening.
A good sign.
Do you going back to 2020? Then did you see that as an opportunity? Really, in terms of this.
At first, I was totally freaked out. I was like, "Oh man, I just hope I don't end up like locked up in a place with other people. If I can be alone, like just give me my own cell. If you're gonna fucking lock us all down, like I don't want to end up in a camp."
Yeah.
So I was sort of making fun of it, but also like being open to that they could really if they can do that, then they can do a lot of other things. But I also understand that there's forces that rise to meet these events and that we're being supported.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I end up seeing it as a gift. It redirected my path, and I was able to break free from a lot of people that revealed themselves. People that woke me up to 9/11 and stuff went along with this bullshit and were like attacking me. It was really wild. So yeah, some of the most knowledgeable dudes that I learned a lot from, just you could just see the wall like just come in. And so I needed to see that. I needed to realize how alone I am, and in that respect. And a lot of people I know that would have, it's like it saved their life because they were heading down a path that would have been destructive. And what it did was redirect them into a different experience that helped them to get to know themselves. And I would have never started a channel or anything or presented this knowledge had this not happened. But the most disturbing part was that my teachers that come from the Castaneda material, they also went along with this shit.
Wow.
I tried to present to them what was really going on, and they were condescending and unaware to the degree that I realized, okay, the program has everyone. And yeah, that's the most disturbing piece, is like these people that were supposedly psychic and provably psychic.
Yeah.
They weren't willing to look at use their psychic abilities in areas that would have been most beneficial, because it was too disturbing for them to come to terms with. Even though they're aware of the program, they aren't willing to look at how it plays out. They just keep it in the spiritual concept.
That's mind blowing, though, Joel. I mean, in terms of parallel lives, then I would suspect then that they are going against it in a parallel life, but you needed them on this realm to show themselves in that side of things, and therefore you had your test as well.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm so thankful to everyone, all my shadow teachers.
Yeah.
And whatever got a hold of them, and however it works, it's the most upfront, up close view of getting to see how the program operates.
It was literally mind blowing. I remember my stepdad, who is one of the most logical and intelligent people I've ever met in my life, and I couldn't believe when he was going, and I was like, why can't you see this? And it was like, why can't you see this? And it was a soul test for me to stand my ground and go, hold on, and I lost, like you did, my friends, most of my family just still thought I was crazy, still do, but that's fine. And it forced me into isolation, which was a great thing, in that respect. But a new family was earthed out of that as well. It's a wild time. But amazing, but I've got so much gratitude for it, because it's really set me on a path that even though I was going down these rabbit holes for many, many years, I didn't expect myself to be observing the way I do now. And this reality, because I'm thinking, well, hold on a minute, there's something not quite right with this realm, because it's certainly not what I was brought up to believe.
It's exciting. It's a mystery, and that's why I don't spend too much time trying to explain it. I don't want it to be explained. I just want to be inside of the mystery of it. And if this is a dream, and there's other dreams that we can go into, we're being kicked out of this. We're just being kicked out of the phantom world and forced to go explore. And that's why they lie to us about exploration, that we would get into these rocket ships to go to other worlds. This is the ship. This is the vessel that will take you to these other places. And they're not they're not physical. They're not outside of this place. It's just all within, and the abyss is real. And so this idea of outer space and all this stuff is just, it's the inversion of the inner abyss. It's the way of just, misleading humanity so completely, that only the initiated are able to have access to things that would validate and help understand the energetic nature of things. But we don't need to be in their secret clubs in order to learn. Our lot as men is to learn. And women already know. They're already aware. They're designed like this, and men are designed like this. And if we can learn to work with women and understand the power of what they already are aware of, and then balance that by becoming very focused in our mass.
In terms of like the men, you did a triangle, so that's almost like it's like a pyramid in itself, and we're trying to be on top.
We walk to the top of our pyramid and we stand on top and say, this is who I am. This is the knowledge I gained. This is my gift, to society, to the world. The women, their ability to go into their depths and drop into their power and become the oracles, guide men to their soul, remind men of the simplicity of life, and to get out of their minds and drop into their feelings.
Yeah.
And so we balance each other. Like my elder said, there's only two tribes, the tribe of man and the tribe of woman. If we can learn to work together, we can reclaim our magic and medicine, and then we won't be able to be influenced in the way that we are currently.
And that's so interesting, that, because 2020 again, the ladies, the women were the ones doing that. They were going the triangle because they were the ones fighting. They went into mother bear syndrome, and they were fighting, and where the men disappeared. The majority of the men just disappeared. So that's quite interesting. And then you've got in this experience right now with the sort of trans movement that's been going on, the woke movement, it's men have really kind of disappeared, and it's quite a fascinating period where the challenges are there for so many people to break free of and find who they truly are. And the key is to find who you are, because actually we're very powerful. We just don't know it. We're conditioned out of it.
Yeah, the inversion is working, right? So like the women are becoming men, and they're using the patriarch, or they're, in order to survive the patriarch, they're using their masculine. But if they could learn to stop doing that and move into their feminine, then that would change the relationship between themselves and their man, or their potential relationship with others. Yeah. And then vice versa, men are instinctively moving into their feminine to balance the fact that the women are using their masculine. And vice versa, we're triggering that flip because it's instinctual that something's off. So it's a really difficult thing to be in partnership and to face the way in which this is playing out, not just within your relationship, but collectively. And but this is where we can start to shift and realize how to build a new muscle and move back into more natural states. But then that can lead to like religion and people thinking that the man is in charge, and that you go to church and it's all about God. It's just this other indoctrination system that most people go into. But the dance between a man and a woman is powerful, and there's not one over the other. No. It's a very unique experience in which both parties have so much to offer, but it's a revolution to be able to do the shadow work to the depths that you can truly respect each other enough to go the distance and not run away from just the wound, because the wound's going to surface the closer you get with someone, the more vulnerable it is. And then there's parts of you that are just unresolved from childhood, and it just comes out, and that's the shadow work. And it's not easy to be able to admit to. You can't spiritually bypass that stuff. If you've got undealt with rage, it needs to fucking come out, and you're gonna have to figure out a way to do that without hurting yourself or others. And that's part of what's becoming a man is learning how to have those outlets and honor how powerful you are. It's the only way you're going to get to know your warrior self, is to get to know what you're capable of. And you're going to have to feel things you don't want to feel in order to get to that place.
And that's why the new age deception came into play, isn't it? Because You just gotta, we'll just, think happy thoughts here, and it's all just gonna go by, and then it's just all that rage is suppressed rather than us actually dealing with the shit that's within our gut that needs to be dealt with.
Yep.
It cannot keep it down there. That's just gonna, it's no good, and we just got to do it correctly. You know, you don't harm anyone or harm yourself, but it's got to come out. It's there's and that child as well. That wounded child has got to come out and play as well. It's all these conditionings that we've had.
Yeah, or throw a tantrum, whatever it needs to do. We need to give space for our parts of ourselves. You don't have to take ayahuasca or DMT to know these things. You can go in there and get to know what's really going on just by not distracting yourself for a period of time and feeling your feelings at surface. But martial arts or some sort of means in which you can get it out that is realistic, and sexual frustration as well, like learning how to move that energy through you and being honest with any longing or desire that's not being respected within your being. And so a lot of people try to force celibacy when they're not ready, and then they push past and get into a quagmire in which that energy it becomes too intense, and it actually causes schizophrenia, or what they call schizophrenia. But it's just a too much sexual energy stored up that moves your assemblage point to a place where you weren't prepared to go because you didn't face your humanness, and you were trying to become a shaman or something and skip the heartache that comes with being in a human form and experiencing desire and love.
You beautifully led this into an area that I wanted to bring up, and that is the wannabe shaman guru, which came a lot through the New Age, and I seen this myself personally. So when we had a guy who was living out the back, and bless his heart, he's a self-proclaimed shaman. Now this comes into. So there was a lot of DMT being passed around at the back of the pub, and there's a lot of plant medicine, or power plants as you call them, as people were trying to find themselves, I suppose, in a way. But I've noticed a lot is it's almost become an addiction for people, and again, they're not facing themselves, in my opinion. They're not giving themselves the time to do that, but. This guru thing, I mean, that's a problem, isn't it? I mean, I know that, again, maybe it's my perception, but that's a problem. That's an ego problem where people are looking for power again, and it's almost the wanting the followers, the wanting especially the female followers. That it's like look at me, they're on that pyramid. You know what I mean, Joel?
The pedestal, the pedestal is. If you allow yourself to be put on a pedestal, then it's going to hurt when you get taken off, and it's going to hurt other people when you fall from it, and then you're not grounded if you're on a pedestal. So I watch a lot of people allow that pedestal to happen, and it's just it's kind of like, I mean, it's I'm glad to see it, so I understand a model of what not to do, but it's really, really. Like Carlos went all over the world to try to find any of these self-proclaimed gurus, and he looked at their energy field to see what they were about, and it was all really disturbing. There was nothing out there. It's all it's just the predator running people in order to control humanity. And so this is what I mean. If you come out of victimhood and move into the next stage, is going to try to make you victorious. Have to find a way to stay neutral and indifferent, So Don Juan would tell Carlos, don't you dare, worship my underwear when I die, or some bullshit like that. Don't ever disrespect me by turning me into a guru. I'm much more magical than that. I did not get caught in that, and therefore I'm a free being that is a threat to you and everyone. So shamans are terrifying. The real ones are not going to sit there and play that role. Their freedom is too important to them. That's why I was never going to share anything. I was always going to be private. And so this is the hardest thing in the world to share these things, because people are going to project, and there's going to be all kinds of triggers that come. So it's just a matter of then not being at odds with how people perceive you, so that you can attempt to do to help people come together in a group without the pendulum shifting it into some sort of drama or some sort of established. And it takes being humble enough and beat up enough, I think, to be able to pull it off, so that you keep your perspective. But human mass is important. We need to be able to come together in large groups.
Yeah.
And so we need like a council of elders that have been proven to not be seduced by power, that can communicate with each other as we move into these next layers and start to figure out ways to get together and have a unique individual, like a focused awareness. Just like if you're at a concert where the band is moving the crowd, there's this thing that happens. If we could do that with awareness training, that's what would make us capable of reclaiming the magic and medicine that's needed to properly no longer be influenced by this force that has so far outmaneuvered us.
That's the story to create, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what a number of, I would imagine, a number of souls like yourself are here to create that movement.
Yeah, I think so. It's just a matter of when people are ready, and the more and more focused everyone gets, the more they'll be called to that kind of thing. And I think, like I've said before, one person one day will think of one thing that will change everything for everyone forever.
Yeah.
We're all inventors, and we're all remembering, and we're going to need to remember our genetics, our ancestral memories, and be able to tap into these ancient systems that are in place. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. The Tolteks already mapped out the dream world. Our job is to continue that work in honor and respect for these giants that discovered the truth about this layer and all the other layers that are available to go into.
Speaking of dreams, Joel, there's no one better to ask than yourself regarding dreams. So this year, I think it was on 3 occasions in my sleeping dream, I've had 3 people come into my dreams uninvited. One I know wasn't a problem, because this individual was checking me out before I did a podcast with her, and I felt that, and I woke up and I felt it, and I was cool with that. But I've had 2. One the other night, incidentally, by actually the self-proclaimed shaman, who came into my dream. So I walked into this room, so I can see this vividly now because it was only the other night, and I walk into a room in my dream. The colour's duller. It's duller than the being that's in the room that shouldn't have been there. I walk in and I go, "What are you doing here?" And he turned round, but he wrestled me. He physically wrestled me, and was wanting information from me, which was interesting. But I was fully aware in my dream that he shouldn't be there. Yeah. Now, what is that all about?
Well, that was one of Carlos's tests, was to go and hover above somebody who was sleeping.
Yeah.
And that person was aware that there was someone in his room and was pissed. The reality is there's not much we can do about it. The trick is to become so in love with life that you're boundless and you're not at odds with anything at all. And then these things will stop having interest in you when you become free of fear and just so full of love. Then it can't get any rise out of you or any drama. Sometimes it's really them, and sometimes it's these inorganic beings pretending to be them as a means to gain access to you and know how you respond or react. So for many years, I was in battle with the old shaman that I first trained with. Every
Wow.
night for every dream, one after another, it was just him, and I was working shit out. And eventually, I had an elder sleep next to me in a hotel because we were on a painting project out of town. I was working for him. He was a real powerful native dreamer, and so he watched over me while he was asleep. He could do both at the same time, and I was able to get a break from this interference for multiple days. So it's not
Right.
that there isn't things that can be done. It's just that I had to learn to do what that man did for me, for myself, over time,
Right.
which is just being aware on a level that's, so this is a perfect opportunity in that respect, that it's giving you an understanding of how this works. And it can be just as, it can be amazing, like the woman that visited you, or you might be in a martial art program and your martial art teacher visits you in dreams, and you experience him as like a bear, like he's an animal form, but he's part human or something, and that would help you understand. Oh, he's in the bear medicine. You know, his martial art comes from the bear. Like, you can learn about your teachers or friends through how they show up in dreams, but it can also be a deception.
Mm.
If you look in the eyes of everyone, you know, like you think you're talking to your aunt or uncle, but if you look in their eyes and look at their face, it's not them. That these inorganic beings can't quite
Yeah.
create the face that would. And so then then it shape shifts. You're looking at your aunt, and then all of a sudden it's your cousin, you know, or something. And you're like, but we're so unconscious that we're just being tricked in every moment of our sleep, because we think we're in this dream, but we're in other
Yeah.
layers of the onion. And so what Carlos noticed when he watched people is their assemblage point is moving all over the place when they're asleep.
Okay.
So how can we become conscious while we're asleep so that our assemblage point can move? We can go into these other worlds without being tricked into thinking it's this world. And that's basically the task that we have. So you try to look at your hands and realize you're in a dream, and then start trying. You can learn to like turn and keep the dream intact by not letting it morph into another dream, and that's called stalking. So dreaming is
Okay.
moving the assemblage point, and stalking is being able to stay in the new position of perception without it going in another, just opening up into another shift. It's about expansion and contraction, expansion and contraction, being able to do both.
Wow. There's a real power in that, because it's so fascinating as a guy who spent most of his life wanting to stay awake, if you like, and not go to sleep because I didn't want to miss out on anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd go and party or whatever, and sleep was like, I'm missing out if I go to sleep. I
Yeah.
now go to bed, and I know that actually this is such an important part of my experience while I'm here.
Yeah.
And I'm a long way off from fully having the power of within my dream, but
Me
I've
too.
started to have something, and that excites me because I can go to bed and go, this is going to be another experience tonight.
Yes.
Um,
It's,
and are you able to protect yourself though? I mean, because obviously the new age kind of thing, spiritually, they would say, you can protect yourself from this kind of thing, or is it just awareness, really?
I mean, I've played with both.
Hmm.
I think the protection invites attacks sometimes,
Okay, that's interesting.
right? It's
Yeah,
like you're setting a barrier and then something's going to come check it out. So it's like, well, what if there was no barrier? Are you really going to die? Like, is it that big of a deal that you have a nightmare or that something visits you? Like, basically just come out of fear, and
yeah,
then and none of it matters. So I'm a big advocate for just falling in love with your existence. If my dreaming gets too intense, I'll go into heavy cannabis use in order to slow it down, and then I'll switch out of cannabis use in order to enter it again with a different, fresh perspective. Because
hmm.
cannabis borrows dreaming energy. That's why you have the cannabis high. Is you.
Oh, right. Okay.
So my friends only remember their dreams when they go to jail because they can't get access to cannabis. It's just sort of this, thing that,
Interesting.
yeah. So we have these ways to be just honest with where we're at, and be creative with how we go through things. So, um, but yeah, man, it's just the reality is, for me, the cannabis doesn't even work anymore. My dreams are getting so intense, whether I try to shut them down or not. So at some point, I'm gonna have to figure out how to be able to handle how intense it gets, because it only intensifies. The challenges increase, but
Mm.
when you stop trying to, I mean, that only makes sense. Like with any martial art or any advanced training, the better you get at it, you're going to reach more and more difficult stages of training. And so it's just about being okay with that, instead of trying to make life safe and secure. We have to go seeking adventure and excitement, and our chakra line heals through ecstasy. When incredible feelings move through us, that's what allows us to feel the depths of sadness, that then allows the emotional healing to truly happen. So dreaming is a reclaiming. If your nervous system is dysregulated, just start with getting really good sleep somehow. Find a way to come out of insomnia by coming out of stress, and then getting really good rest. Create the bedroom environment in which you feel really comfortable, and that we're, because you can get drained from being unaware in your dreams, and you wake up like foggy and not clear. But if you learn to regulate your nervous system through deep rest and relaxation and meditation, eventually your dreams get magical. You rest really well, your nervous system is regulated, and you just start taking really good care of yourself. You wake up to greet the sun. You prioritize connecting to life in a level that will revitalize you.
Yeah. Joel, I know we're going to end it very soon.
Yeah.
I'm gonna end it with the biggest of questions, if possible.
Please.
So listening to you over the past couple of years, this life is to prepare ourselves for death. So, what is death? Because this is going to be the majority of people's fear, because it's so an unknown. It's such an unknown. What, in your understanding, is it, and what's likely to be happening at those points? Do you know?
So, I mean, shamans seek to have a death prior to their death, a shamanic death, where they become aware of what's going to happen, and then they suspend that action, and then like reestablish their self. So essentially, we have a cocoon, and eventually that cocoon's going to open up, and there's like thousands of individual crystals of awareness inside of that cocoon that are all that's your consciousness. And that consciousness at death starts to separate and go. All those little individual crystals start to separate, never to return to each other again. So you merge with the eternal. That's thousands of different awarenesses within you. But if you were to call those back, having had that experience with merging with eternity, then you would become a shaman. That's what a shaman is somebody that achieved that, merged with eternity, and brought that energy back to share with others, and to teach and explain and help people prepare for their death. And so the recapitulation will guide us to this kind of magical way of doing. The magical passes will do the same. But it is a brutal thing to lose your life force. It's excruciating to die unless you're on the battlefield. Then you won't feel a thing. And that battle doesn't have to be with a spear in the mud. It can be the battlefield of your power. It can be that so shamans say that if you develop your dance of power, then when it's time for your death will honor you and allow your final dance to say goodbye to this realm before it takes you. So death is a force. They say life is the arena and death is the player, and our death is stalking us. And if you're not listening, then your death will take you because you weren't paying attention. It's a real thing. And so That's why we are the way we are. We're hesitant, we're afraid, we're concerned. But death is the ultimate ride. It's a rebirth. It will reveal everything, right? So they say you're born with the totality of your being and then you die with it, but in between you forget about it. Death reveals the totality of what you are. You realize in that moment how magical you are of a creature. And it's painful to realize that you didn't spend your life as that being. It's so people that go to kill themselves, they start to cross over and then they're like, no, because they see it and they wish they hadn't done that because they were trying to escape the very thing they were looking for. It's you. You are the thing that you're looking for, and it's all here and now. And so you want to make yourself really, really strong, so death has to fucking come at you with everything that it has. And then you'll feel so incredibly powerful that whether you die or not, it won't matter. Because all you can do is your very best. There's no failure. If you know that you gave it your all, and you put your heart on the line, and you're willing to discover what you're made of, then you'll feel an incredible joy upon crossing. And you will become very excited in what you go and discover. And for Tolteks, they don't die. They move on and merge and go. They bounce from vision to vision to vision forever.
Wow.
They live as long as the Earth Mother is alive. And she, for all, she's a shapeshifter. So just because she's in this one form doesn't mean she won't transition to something else. So we're not meant to just recycle. We're meant to go on and continue. And death is that means to do so.
So the journey continues.
Yeah, Billy.
Joel, that's the most powerful and beautiful way to end this podcast. Thank you so much for that incredible conversation. I knew it would have been the podcast of the year for me. Appreciate it. Appreciate you, brother. Can you please tell people about your courses and your sessions that you offer on your website and where they can find you, please?
Totally, yeah. Just joelschafer.com, and we do online courses that go 9 classes, and then it's just on recapitulation, shamanic movement, dreaming gates, and we have really powerful conversations. This next one's called resilience. Since it's during the winter here, it's going to be a time to sort of get to know your resiliency, be followed up with an in-person workshop in Missoula, Montana in April. But I teach the same things in one-on-one. So if people want to learn the movements or understand, more about the recapitulation, or just some people come to me just to work out stuff from their past that's unresolved, because I can help assist in ways that they may have not thought have. And just having somebody to talk to and tell your story to and unburden yourself of any secrets or anything that you feel you need to release from your field. I hold space for people to have emotional healing, become aware of what they're capable of navigating. So joelschafer.com, and look forward to hearing from anybody that feels called. I do free consults. So just if and when you're ready, just jump on my calendar there and we can talk.
And I also recommend anyone to follow Joel on social media as well. You'll find him on Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever it's called these days, Facebook and YouTube, The Perceiver, I believe, on YouTube. So highly recommend. You want wisdom, Joel's the man. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Ant. Really good to be with you, brother.
You take care.
All right, you too. All right. Thanks, guys.